Oh, okay. I know Jennifer wants to keep it separate, but.
That's why we're not allowed to sit next to each other.
Yeah, sit next to me.
Welcome everyone to.
You can't have nice things.
Let's try that one again. Okay, welcome everyone to the September 18th meeting of the Town of Hadley Select Board. With me this evening, I have David Phil to my right, myself, Molly Keegan, Jane Nevin-Smith, and Amy Parsons. Randy Iser will not be with us this evening. And in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 22 of the Acts of 2022, signed by the Governor on February 15th, 2022, I announce that the meeting of the Select Board is being recorded by Hadley Media, the Select Board's office via Zoom, and ask if there is anyone present who is also recording the meeting. So if no one is recording, Jennifer, please let the minutes reflect that no one else has indicated that they are recording this meeting. Okay. So the first item on the agenda is our consent agenda. So tonight we have approval of the minutes from the August 7th and 21st meetings, 2024. We have a one-day liquor license change request for the Young Men's Club, asking that the responsible party on the one-day license issued for the Oktoberfest event to be held on October 19th be changed from John Michkowski Jr. to Richard Downey. We have a one-day liquor license request from the Young Men's Club for April 26, 2025, from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m., and this is an all alcohol license. And we have a bylaw committee appointment with Paul Benjamin from the Finance Committee being appointed.
So moved.
Oh.
Oh.
Well, we can move it and then I can.
Okay,
discuss.
I'll retract that. Good.
I would like to talk about the one-day liquor license for April 25th. So can we pull that from the consent, please?
April 26th.
Okay, we'll discuss that separately.
Thank you.
Would anybody like to make a motion on the other items?
Yes, motion to approve the responsible party change and the bylaw committee appointment.
In minutes,
Oh, and the minutes.
Okay, is there a second?
second.
Okay, motion made by David, seconded by Jane. All those in favor?
Aye.
So Jennifer, can I have an update, please, on the status of the Alcohol Beverage Commission and the changes that the Young Men's Club are making?
I checked in with the ABCC. They have approved their license with the conditions of the contiguous property line, and Blue Galv installed what appears to be. Do you mind talking over it? No. They've installed the barrier that was required at the ABCC, and the license has been approved.
And Rich, if you could just let the viewing audience know who you are.
Rich Downey, representing Young Men's Club,
Okay,
on my home address or? Okay,
and what is the event for April 26th?
so every year we do Spring Fest, and it's basically a fundraiser for, the past year we did the UMass Ski and Board Club. And this year we're looking for another charitable organization. They raised money for ALS. So now we're trying to find another one, but we want to get the permit in now because we have Oktoberfest coming up on the 25th. And last year they ended up canceling Spring Fest, but we want to be able to advertise to the kids that we're going to be having it again.
And is that a concert like Oktoberfest or what?
Yeah, it's more of a DJ. They usually do it's more DJs and garage bands more than anything. It's not a big stage like Country Show or Fall Fest.
Okay.
Right, so-
And that would be subject to whatever requirements are placed on you by,
Just like Fall Fest. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
all right.
yeah. Same. I would expect the same that we have for the event coming up in October.
There are conditions put on there that state The building inspections said all previous conditions for this event are to be followed, so it's just carrying over that same list as before. And fire EMS inspections, fire and EMS detailed for the event, which again was something that's just carried forward, and Chief Mason just approved it, but again, the conditions means.
Okay,
Anyone want to make a motion to approve?
I move to approve.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion made by Jane, seconded by Amy. All those in favor of the all alcohol one-day license for the Young Men's Club on April 26, 2025.
Hi.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
See you tomorrow.
Okay, the select board at this point will offer a brief time for public comment. So is there anyone here this evening for public comment? Yes. Okay, if you could come up and let everyone know who you are.
Yes, I'm Vincent O'Connor. I live at 175 Summer Street in Amherst. I've lived in the area for 50 years this year. And I've served on a number of town committees in Amherst where I live, including 6 years, 2 terms on the Public Works Committee. So I have some concerns because I spent a lot of time during the pandemic and before and since giving rides to people who don't have automobiles or driver's licenses until, I guess, a couple of Julys ago, in Northampton and in some places in Amherst and in Hadley. And so I just wanted to bring to the board's attention that I found recently, and maybe it's been your experience as well, that on roads, narrow roads like Moody Bridge, Mill Valley, Rocky Hill Road, Roosevelt Street, that people seem to think that the speed limit is the minimum speed. And if you don't go the minimum, what they determine to be the minimum speed, that they have some legal right to pass over the double yellow line on curves, on hills, and endanger both themselves, the people they're passing, and cars that they may not see until it's too late. And so my concern is to bring to the board's attention a problem that I've experienced, because there are some years during the pandemic where I drove 25 to 30,000 miles a year, bringing people to and from work, to and from school. And so I had a lot of time to observe this. And so the concerns I have is I would just urge the board to get the process going by which your public works department could decide, using whatever standards are available, where to put signs that say, do not pass. Because the WO line seems not to be impressing a certain percentage of our drivers. And head-on crashes on curves and so forth are just the worst thing for the department, for everyone who is involved. It is a terrible situation. And so just both on curves and on hills and so forth, if the department could take a look at those streets, I mean, I'm sure there are others and they're aware of them, but the WO lines, as wonderful as they are, when you come from Amherst to Hadley, you see real paint, as opposed to the ephemeral paint that unfortunately, my community uses. But it doesn't seem to make an impression on people. And I really think there's some people who could endanger others and themselves. And I do think that they're really important consideration to find locations where emphasizing that the WO line means something and that people should not pass.
No, thank you
And-
for, bringing it to our attention, expressing your concern. As you know, from your years of service over in Amherst, for public comment, we can't really discuss it. We can
Right,
take it under
right, but I mean,
advisement.
I assume that,
Yeah.
you're here to listen and
Yep.
you care about, and I do want to say, there are two things in terms of Rocky Hill Road. The speed limit of 30 miles per hour appears to encourage people to pass over the WO line. I've found that in doing defensive driving, if I go a little closer to 35 than to 30, I feel like I'm preventing people from passing me in dangerous situations. So I just want to say that. I think maybe some of you have the experience.
Mhm.
And finally, I just also want to bring to your attention and say a kind word to the Hadley police officer who called me about an accident where I was sideswiped by a truck. And a non-involved party made a report to the police department. And when the officer called me, I kept him on the phone for a while, telling him how the Route 9 North Maple, South Maple intersection was that the painted lines had been obliterated. It created a very dangerous situation, which in fact led to me getting sideswiped.
Mhm.
And I just urged him, I said, I think you'll have worse situations happen if people, Mass doesn't do something. I spoke to him late in the week. The next Monday, Mass DOT was out and spent 4 days at that intersection, putting new lines and so forth and making that intersection a lot safer for the people who use it.
Mhm.
And I've basically have used it daily probably for years.
Yeah.
So I just want to thank
Yeah,
the
thank you for
officer.
that.
I do not remember his name, but I want to say that I think the fact that he took my comments seriously and that Mass DOT was out doing its job the next Monday was really gratifying. It was
Yeah.
worth the $125 I just spent on a new door.
Well, thank you for that. And if, again, we can't discuss, however, if, as long as you're aware, the chief of police and the DPW director are here tonight and they just heard everything that you said, so.
Okay, and I would be more than happy to appear before whatever committee is appropriate. My phone number is still in the phone book, and if you have some old copies of it, and I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to these concerns.
All right, thank you, Vince. Okay, next item on the agenda, DPW CEI updates, I believe, Scott?
Good evening. Wanted to come in front of the board today to discuss some ongoing things with the DPW. Nick Christofori is here from CEI Engineering. One of our hot topics is the agricultural ditches. As we've been made aware that we have to abide by the Wetlands Protection Act to do any kind of maintenance of them. And we are not exempt. And I'd like to discuss with the board on what your feelings are. You may or may not want to do with that. And Nick can get a little bit more into detail with that. Needs to be permitted every year. We have to abide by, different laws and regulations and things like that. And it's gonna cost us money to do so. And so I'm not sure where that's going to come from to make that happen, but there is going to be some financial difficulties to continue to maintain the ditches now that we've been made aware that we are not exempt from any kind of regulations.
Scott, could you just educate us a bit on, I think we're pretty familiar with the network of ditches, townwide, but kind of the condition? Are there particular spots that you're more concerned about than others? I know many of them have been cleaned out fairly recently.
So we have a little circuit that we kind of try to mow and maintain every year. Along Hopkins from Bay Road out, East Street, there's two there. Rocky Hill Road, there's a section. Out back on, it runs against Route 9. There are just multiple spots all over. And another thing that comes into play with this too is some of them we do have legal easements on. Some of them we don't. So we just have little sections of easements. So this kind of got very complicated. And I just don't know what really the right thing to do is because of the logistics of it. I think that we should continue to mow them because it does take some drainage along with it. They're not, it's, these cross-country ditches, they do take agricultural water off of fields, but some of the water from our runoff goes in those also, where we have a little bit of an obligation to keep those open, but logistically, it becomes a little complex. Once a ditch is made or whatever, then becomes an intermittent brook. And we have to, file to do all that. work. Conservation or that Mass DP has to go.
Does mowing require permitting as well, or is mowing exempt from the,
Mowing is not exempt.
so we have to get permitting every year to mow?
Yes, there is no longer a general blanket permit. It needs to be permitted every year.
And is it a blanket permit for the town or is it ditch by ditch, section by section?
Nick, can you respond to that?
Yeah, sure. So
You used to be able to, as Scott kind of touched on, have a blanket notice of intent approval to go and do things like maintain your ditches. So you were able to go and mow them and clean out sediment and things along those lines. Within the past probably 10 years or so, DEP has gotten away from kind of blanket permitting that type of activity. So now you really do need to go and permit segment by segment, ditch by ditch, any proposed maintenance activities that you need to do or want to do. And as Scott said, you're allowed to do the maintenance, but you still need to permit any maintenance that you propose. And as part of that permitting, you need to go essentially walk these ditches. Like CEI, we went and walked both sides of these ditches. I think we did something like 5 miles 5 years ago, something like that. And you need to flag resource areas. So you need to flag where they are perennial streams, where they're intermittent streams, where they're hydrologic connections, where they're wetlands. And, so it used to be very easy and now it's not. And the other thing too, is that once you get a permit, you're okay for 3 years. But then after that, you need to go through the exercise and refile and get new permission to essentially go and maintain these ditches. So, I guess what I'm getting at is that this used to be sort of like not a big deal thing to go out and maintain these ditches. And it's much more complicated now. There's a lot more paperwork. Everything needs to be permitted. Everything needs to be approved through Conservation Commission and DEP. So in light of that, and Scott, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong or chime in, but I think we're looking for a little bit of guidance as to what the town would like to do for these types of activity moving forward. Scott, as you kind of mentioned, some of these ditches have town easements, but as I recall, I believe the majority of them probably have no easement or right of way or are not located on town property, which means they're located on private property. So now that they're located on private property, now it gets even more difficult because the town is essentially spending money to permit privately owned ditches and maintain privately owned ditches using taxpayer money, obviously. So, you know, and I'm just kind of throwing all these things out there for input. I mean, so what does the town feel is the best way to move forward on these things? I mean, should DPW be moving forward just within areas that have an easement? I mean, obviously there is a desire to keep these things functioning properly and making sure that they are maintained periodically. Um, I mean, eventually these things all discharge to culverts that go underneath town roadways and everything. So, you know, it's difficult as this sort of this web of infrastructure, which has always been maintained using town resources and town money. Um, but is that still, I guess, still the direction that the board would like DPW to go? So that's
So
my
Nick-
kind of long-winded introduction on that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just from my standpoint, it would seem that just like we have a plan for the roads, right? I mean, you start with an inventory and figure out where we have ownership issues, where we have, you know, everything you were just talking about. And then have a proposed plan from the DPW director to say, you know, this is a problem, this needs to be fixed right away, this can wait a couple of years. I mean, I'd be hard pressed to engage in the discussion without knowing that, and then obviously the obvious, you know, and what's that gonna cost us, you know? Jane?
Do you have a sense, Scott, that any of the residents that have ditches running through their yards or property use them for their own benefit? Or is it something that the town put these ditches in and they're really focused on the town's needs?
I think there's a few areas that, you know, residents do benefit from. They have, you know, roof leader drains and cellar drains and things of that nature, discharge into the ditches. So there is a little bit of, you know, private drainage into the ditches without a question. And another problem that comes into light in some of these residential areas that they're becoming developed and et cetera, the accessibility to them is limited to none. We can't get equipment in there to work. And I try to explain to people, you know, we don't go in there with rakes and shovels and wheelbarrows and buckets to do this work. We bring equipment to, you know, do this process, and we're boxed out in a lot of spots. That's another problem with this too. So we can clean here, but over here we can't, and then over here we can again. So it's a real like compounded problem from point A to B. It's just not easily navigated at all. Just there's a lot of obstacles in some way, shape, or form with this whole ditch thing. It's you know, I don't know the answer. And it's, you know, obviously money comes into play with this, especially now that we are clear of the regulations.
David?
So for as long as I can remember, we've always mowed the ditches. As far as cleaning them and maintenance, I mean, there was probably 20 years where nothing was done as far as actually cleaning ditches. And then going back maybe 5 years, 6 years ago, something like that, was our first crack at actually cleaning out some ditches because, you know, we had flooding in farmers' fields. We had issues because, you know, one person would clean out their own ditch and then it would drain water and then back up into the next person's land that didn't want to clean out their ditch. So the idea was to get things on track. I think regardless, we should still be mowing them if they're accessible, whether they're on private or whether we have an easement or not, because that helps the system work. But I think a map kind of outlining where the ditches are and whether we have easements or not would be helpful because, you know, maybe some people are unwilling to give us an easement, but then that maintenance is going to fall on them, you know, especially if it's something that benefits the overall drainage system in the town. And I just hate to see us go backwards after 20 years of doing nothing. And then we spent all this money to kind of try to catch up. And now we're having to take another step back from that. So.
Yeah, I agree with you. CEI obviously does have some of the mapping and data from the project, you know, from 6 years ago.
Right.
So there is some of that already out there. But it needs like a total mapping of it has to be done,
Right.
obviously. But, you know, just even as far as the mowing, this is the time of year we start mowing. Cause you know, we can access it, you know, the farmers are done doing their thing and we can get in there. Well, I just, you know, I'm not sure how fast or if at all we could even get permitted to do that this year.
Are infrastructure grant monies available for this kind of thing, like the MVP, or
We,
at least with the inventorying and documentation and all of that?
we could certainly try. I'm not sure if it's appealing to them. We got denied for the culvert replacement on East Street through the MVP.
Mhm.
And that's like, I thought was a pretty good project and should have scored relatively high.
Mhm.
We haven't got a debriefing on that yet, but just cleaning or something like that of agricultural ditches. I think we would get denied. There's just too many projects out there and everyone's trying to get it.
I just wonder if there's something from MDR or something like that as far as. Cause the argument can be made, the vast majority of our ditches benefit farmers and are
Farmers.
running through farmers' fields, so, no.
Jane?
See, yeah, how thorough is your inventory of our ditch status?
So when we did it back in 2019, we identified in cooperation with, I think Chris Okafor was there at the time as DPW director. He identified what he felt was the top, say, 25% of the ditches. And that is what we went and looked at. And I'd have to go back and look at my records. Obviously, it's been something like 5 years, but there is a map that exists from probably 3 decades ago that shows the town's ditches, which obviously is out of date, but there is some documentation. The intent was that when we did the original 25% evaluation back 5 years ago, that was kind of the first cut at this, and that it would be sort of an ongoing thing. But you know, funding obviously is difficult, and then the MS4 permit was really kind of ramping up, so it kind of stalled. But it is certainly something we could look at to do a more comprehensive inventory and go get a better handle on, you know, all of the ditches that are out there. I do like the idea of really getting into what's there for an easement. I know Scott had kind of looked into that, you know, what has an easement and what don't, but you know, that would definitely be a next good step.
With what, go ahead, Jim, sorry.
I think if we can get a copy of that 3-decade or whatever map that you do have, that would be a good thing to have in-house as well as have you work from, just so we have a sense of where we're going.
With what we have now at our disposal, are we able to go to conservation to request the permitting for mowing for this fall?
Go and re-permit what we did back in 2019, which would be fine. You know, something is better than nothing. We spoke with, is it Kayla, Scott? I think
Yes.
it's Kayla, right? Yeah. We spoke with Kayla, and she seemed to indicate that even though the notice of intent had expired 3 years ago, that she didn't anticipate it being, you know, a huge level of effort to get that work re-permitted. But so that would probably be something that may be worthwhile to get done now, at least get those things, you know, at least mowed. I mean, if nothing else, you could mow them. I mean, Scott, you just cleaned them out pretty good, you know, 5-ish years ago. So I think sediment accumulation, they're probably not too bad.
Obviously there's some areas with sediment, but I don't think it's totally restricted, just the brush growing in the grass and et cetera. I think more, you know, becomes more of a problem really than the sedimentation. But, you know, obviously if we can, get in front of the conservation and get going sooner than later, if that's, you know, I'm not sure, how long DEP will take to comment on it. They're sometimes not the fastest, but, you know, I just didn't know what the board would want to do with this, because like I said, it's relatively complex. I don't think we should stop by any means doing this, but just how do we navigate going forward to continue providing this
How much help
service?
can Kayla give us in writing what we need for DEP?
What was that?
How much help can Kayla give us in writing what we need for DEP?
I'm not sure, and I can't answer that. I think most of the information would probably come from Nick, and the board would just, go through its motions with it. And then, we'd have to obviously file for comment with Mass DEP.
So it seems like kind of the low hanging fruit would be the mowing at this
Mhm.
point, which is time sensitive before winter. So I don't know if we could make a motion that Scott proceed with the process with conservation to at least get the mowing done in the meantime until we can work out the rest.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I'm understanding. So is that something, I know that it's more involved now, but from a cost standpoint, is that something that you can proceed with?
Yeah,
With- okay.
for a smaller scale project like that we have money for that kind of project. But I'd have to really look close to see doing a full scale project. Obviously what that's gonna cost from, a consultant and what kind of money we have available to do that. But as far as getting permitted to get going, just to try to mow the ditches, we have funds available for that.
Okay, yeah, and I don't know that we need a vote. I think you're just looking for direction, right?
Yeah,
So does anybody not want Scott to clean the ditches or to mow the ditches?
Well, when you phrase it like that.
the public,
Speak now or forever hold your
and
peace.
then like the whole public property kind of is a little concern of me
Right.
that we're going, in essence where we shouldn't be. And then obviously we have our callbacks and all that.
Right, and I think
That's
that's gonna
part
become, that's a project that
Yeah.
needs to be completed, and then that's gonna become a prioritization, I think, for you, for everything else that's on your plate.
Yeah, I just, some people are more understanding and not. We
Mhm.
go in to do that mowing, we make ruts and we do this and we do that. And, sometimes it takes us a little bit of time to get back and do any kind of restoration work. Just the residents have to understand that, we'll be back, but just when is the question? The mower can go through in no time. But to do restoration work where there's ruts and et cetera, we can't access it easily, et cetera, adds another factor to the equation.
Okay,
So is everybody
I'm good with it.
comfortable with that direction?
Yeah.
Yep. And then we'll have you come back at a future, give you some time to work, Nick, and do whatever you need to start with that inventory and assessment, and then you can come back and report back.
Okay.
I just want to put out that I think as a board, we have to remember that one of the main premises of our whole charter is that we're an agricultural community, and these drainage ditches are critical to agriculture.
They are. Yeah.
And therefore, they should be a priority in our thinking.
I agree totally. It just, becomes complex for us because
Right.
we're not exempt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so how do we get
Yeah,
around
the
that?
rules
Where do we
change,
find the
yeah.
money? But yes, all of those.
All right, thank you. You
Yeah.
might as well stay right there.
Yeah.
Um, So next on the agenda, we have an item for DPW. And Scott, you are looking to have us authorize funding for a new hire. Is that correct?
Yes, so I know we talked a little bit about the sewer department and funding or operations, staffing issues. So a couple weeks ago, I finally heard back from Viola on a non-formal estimate. They wouldn't put it in writing, it was a verbal. So they estimated for 3 employees for the sewer department, $280,000 per year. That does not include any overtime. That doesn't include anything that goes along with their services, just base price for 3 people, $280,000.
And there's a chance that they would require a significant change in operations and potentially some of the equipment down there to run it the way that they want it run.
Because they'd want it
Yeah, we have to meet
standardized.
their standard.
Yeah.
Obviously, they come and we have to meet their standard. So, been talking to, Mike about this. And we still have a staffing problem. We're gonna be, Monday, we'll be back to 3, man crew their operations. I still feel that we're understaffed there. Anytime that there's any kind of issue there, we're under the gun. We're on the brink of disaster with DEP fines, et cetera, et cetera. We have no breathing room. And we, I did some, calculations on my end. To add a fourth employee, it would cost us $281,000 a year
For the fourth employee or in
Right.
total?
in total.
Thank you for the
Total.
clarification.
To go from 3 employees to 4 employees would be 281,000 versus their 280 for 3.
Yeah.
And I think it's still very beneficial for us to keep the sewer department, in Hadley, and Hadley have control of it, not a contractor.
Mhm.
I think some of the things that go along with the sewer department, with overtime expenses, things like that, if we have a fourth guy, we can do some of the preventive maintenance that we haven't been doing. We don't have the staff to be able to perform the preventive maintenance. Preventive maintenance is key. We can alleviate a lot of our problem. Obviously, we're still gonna have problems, but a lot of it can be alleviated if we're doing preventive maintenance. And we haven't been doing that, and we can't because we don't have the staffing. Every time you turn around, somebody's out sick or on vacation or et cetera, or somebody leaves us and we're down a guy.
Mhm.
It's just a constant cycle of us.
So everybody's burning question though, is how much are the rates gonna have to go up in order to pay for the extra employee? Because it's an enterprise fund, right?
So the extra employee can be covered currently
Okay.
with our reserves. Within
Right.
reserves.
About $1,000.
Is that?
You
gonna
just
put-
can't wait 10 years to make the changes.
Right, but is that gonna put the enterprise fund or the reserve fund in financial difficulty down the road with paying those expenses?
Yes.
Linda, did you wanna? Yeah, do you wanna, if you wanna come up and join Scott, because I know you and Scott worked out the funding on this, right? So this,
Yeah.
so this is just the employee issue.
Yes.
So this is $57,000.
Right, and we have, we finished at annual town meeting with 58, almost $59,000 in the reserves. So we really are, touching bottom. So it will cover this, with what we have in reserves. Remember, we don't yet have the impact of the sewer rates that were put in, so we are expecting more money to come in this year. And hopefully we would start to, we'll have another issue that we have in the next item, but it seemed this is something that we need to do, and we have to handle one problem at a time.
Mhm.
And so we don't know what our new certification is. It generally doesn't go down. So when I say 58,000 in the reserves, that's what was left over after our annual town meeting, when we're hoping that as of the July 1, that we will have a higher certification, and we won't know that for another month or so. When the accountants get the numbers submitted to Department of Revenue.
Yeah, so the bottom line, then it sounds like, I mean, it's not even half a dozen of one and six of the other. I mean, if we were to go the outsourcing route, we lose control,
A lot.
Yeah.
And more money.
and it likely is gonna cost us a significant amount of money, over the long
There's
term.
no question, it's gonna cost you more money. To meet their standards, gonna cost us a ton of money.
So, unless people want to talk about this more, does anybody want to entertain a motion to?
Just to throw out there too, that salary wise, I know I talked to Linda about this, we have been short, obviously it's since July 1 to date, 1 employee, so there is a little more there also that we haven't paid out.
So just one last question, because we have the projected rates right through July of 25, the increases,
Not yet.
not yet, okay.
I just made notes on another sheet of
Oh,
paper.
okay, all right. So does this kind of throw a wrench in the works of what we had planned for a step up in rates to kind of get to where we need to be, or are they gonna have to go up more than what was projected, or?
Well, big picture, there's a bigger problem than the employee with the next agenda item,
Okay,
so.
so never mind, I'll wait on that answer.
You're gonna love that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
uh,
Right
but
ahead, Dave.
employee wise though, I just think that we can do better with another employee.
And are we gonna be able to find one?
Uh, yes, we already tentatively found one. When we put out for this, I talked to, Mike and I advertised for, a position. Well, I interviewed from the bottom to the top of skill set. We found an individual that would be coming in at the base level. It's a young tech school kid or man, that we feel that is trainable.
Yeah.
And like currently with Peter and Matt, our new employee, the operations and at the plant, I feel that we're gonna have really covered very well. Now we gotta work on the mechanic side of thing and be able to teach someone how to do all the preventive maintenance stuff, change the oil, the daily routine, the field work side of thing, flushing sewer mains, the dig safes, and we're just really spread really thin a lot in the sewer department, just there's with the grease traps, inspections and et cetera, just we don't have the manpower to do the small ones. And I think that's gonna be huge for us because some of these sewer stations have been rebuilt not too long ago, but we're not doing the preventive maintenance on them because we don't have the manpower to do that.
Make a motion to hire that fourth employee.
Second,
Okay, motion made by David, seconded by Jane. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you.
sure. I can, Scott, you can probably stay right there and Sue's gonna come up and join the crowd.
It's a party up here today.
Yeah. All right, so then, sticking with the theme, the next agenda item is, Scott is going to discuss an issue that he's currently wrestling with, dealing with sludge removal and the costs associated with that.
So in the last few years, our sludge removal price has gone up drastically every year. And we're really facing a shortfall this year. We're budgeted for 160,000 and our estimated cost this year is gonna be 336,000. So there's a huge gap there. Last year at close out of the year, we were really short and we kind of scraped all our line items together. We really stopped doing work, maintenance work, et cetera, to cover the costs of the sludge. And going into this budget cycle, it really wasn't looked at that closely. And we're just gonna be really short on the sludge removal. I called around to a few other communities and talked to other people. Everyone's kind of in the same boat. It's just getting harder and harder to get rid of the sludge, and the people that take it and et cetera are just few and far between, and we're really in a predicament with this, and it's just not us, it's everyone, and it's a very, very costly thing to handle.
Sounds like an easy solution is send it to Amherst and let them handle it,
Now,
like we were talking about.
he's got the same problem. over
Yeah,
there.
I know.
But, I mean, there's like looking a lot further out, there's a little bit of options with the sludge, like I was talking to Sue about. Currently we bid it through the FERCog. We could look at other options, the FERCog only tracks certain people. There's other people that take it. Connecticut, there's a few locations, Upper Blackstone, they just, for whatever reason, don't bid the FERCog. So right now, currently, most of our sludge goes to Lowell. We were able to get in with Montague, that takes a couple loads a week from us. They're a lot cheaper to go there, but it's just. We're under contract and the rate is set by them, and it's a terrible thing, but we have to do it. We have to pay.
Right, so there's maybe some things down the road that we can do to mitigate, but the problem's not gonna go away.
It's not gonna go away.
Right.
It's a continuing problem. And it gets more and more difficult every year with regulations, et cetera. Now the big ticket, I don't know if you see on the news, the PFAS, the Teflon.
Yep.
It's in the wastewater.
Yep.
And wherever you bring that, that person owns that PFAS. And that's another thing that people are starting to get really, worried about.
Concerned about.
Yeah, you bring that to whatever plant, they take possession of that, they own that.
Mhm.
And the disposal of it, et cetera, it's getting very complex.
Mhm.
And with that being said, people just drive their rates.
Mhm.
The landfills that take it, et cetera, and its process become more and more limited.
So the financial management team met to see if they could find ways to financially address the issue. I guess, Sue, that leads to,
Right,
you know, Linda.
right. We looked specifically at, we looked back over 5 years, 4 to 5 years.
That's great.
Oh, okay. Sewer department was able to provide us figures going back to January of 21. Where we were spending, you can see the 6 month there, so the average, for the monthly, for the total for that year was maybe 86. If we project that over the year, we were looking at something like 170,000. Considering the 336,000 estimated for this year, that means we pretty much doubled in 4 years, double. It crept up a little bit the first couple of years. It went from 14,000 a month to nearly 20,000 a month in 24. 24 being the highest year yet, we're looking at then 336,000 for FY 25. So not wanting to, trying to keep the increase down and cover the problem, but keep the issue down a bit while other options were explored between now and annual town meeting. We're looking for a first approach. We're really looking at a difference of we're going to focus on the difference between FY 24 and FY 25, which is a $100,000 increase in the sludge specifically between those 2 years. So we're looking to solve the $100,000 problem there. And to start with, we thought we would look at sewer impact, which we have always used as a backup for various purchases. This is what has come to. We have about $166,000 in the sewer impact fund at this point. So we thought we would move 50,000 from the sewer impact and cover about half that increase. And it would be a one-time transfer. The sewer impact fees are not finite. They do come from time to time, but it's not something that we want to get into the habit of funding the budget out of sewer impact fees. But again, we need to get from here to annual town meeting till we get this problem better identified and possibly even solved. So the other 50,000, we would be looking at a sewer rate increase, which Susan will explain next. But again, between now and annual town meeting, the other considerations that we will be looking at are legislative solutions, perhaps. The legislature is aware that this is an issue. It's certainly not in Hadley. As Scott said, this is going on across the state. Maybe we can get, maybe we will get some more response at that level, maybe some relief. Looking at other towns around us, is there a way to partner up in some kind of arrangement, and whatever their solutions might be, we will have a better idea how our revenues are looking for this year and next by the time we get to annual town meeting. And also where the budget stands this year, is it really increasing as much as was estimated? Sometimes estimates come in high, sometimes they're low, but anyways, we'll see how the estimate really is. We don't want to fund the full amount and go too high, considering we did just have a sewer increase. And so between the budget revenues, sewer impact, legislative, we're just going to try and see what else we can do between now and then. But 100,000 at this point would get us a long ways.
So you want to talk about that?
Sure. So all things being equal, we can never depend on the same usage year to year. What I did was I took what our current year rates are. And can you put that up?
Sorry. I was in the wrong page.
And I multiplied by a 10% factor. That will give us, we will only be able to charge that third and fourth quarter water bills this year, because we cannot do a retroactive rate increase. So the current year, effective 7/1, as you can see, the residential sewer was 768, commercial baseline was 788, and the commercial conservation was 880. That effective February 1st would go to 845, 867, and 968 respectively. You folks back in March of 23 initially voted 20, 10, and 5% over 3 years. So I've also indicated there effective 7/1, the 5% increase that you've already agreed to.
And when we do that, where will that leave us in terms of paying for this?
We should be able to cover it this year.
Okay, this year.
Yeah.
But we don't know about.
We
future.
don't know it next year, but again, the
Well, so
legislature
they-
is aware of this. We're hoping that they come through with us, with something for us.
So Sue, can you just, again, a lot of times when people are listening, they like to say, they're looking at this, but they're not necessarily doing like, what does it mean to me?
Sure.
So, basically the average home and then,
Yep. It's
the
right there.
hotels. Oh, look at that.
So we have a single person, typically somewhere around 200, a single elderly person, somewhere around 200 cubic feet per quarter. Currently, they're paying $15.36. It'll go to $16.90, and third year, $17.75. The single family home, that's my home, that is my bill. It'll go from $99.84 to $109.85, and then $115.31. Small commercial would be your mom and pops type stores. So, they will see those increases, and I don't think they're significant, and I hate to say, geez, I don't think this is much, but it's different for everybody.
Mhm.
And then the large commercial would be a typical hotel.
If this raises 50,000 this year in the second 2 quarters, that would mean 100,000
Subsequently, yeah.
And if everything stays the same, then that would cover the part that this year we're using sewer impact fees to fill in. So that would bring us 100,000 into the next year. And we'll see what happens with sludge and other expenses between now and spring.
And we already voted on this 3-year plan with
Yes.
these increases, so this is what in fact is happening.
Yep.
Okay,
Now, we need a town meeting vote to use the impact fees to pay for this, or no?
Yes,
Okay.
we will be increasing
be
the
included in-
enterprise fund.
Yeah.
Budget for sewer in Article 2. And and then using in the funding chart, 50,000 from the sewer impact fee. It is a 2/3 vote to use the sewer impact fee, so we would probably just get the 2/3 vote for the entire enterprise fund budget amendment.
Okay, any further questions for Scott, Sue, or Linda?
thank you. Thank you for having a way around the problem and solving it for us.
You'll solve it.
We hope.
We have ideas.
So in order to, you will need to take a vote.
Right.
You need to have a public hearing,
Mhm.
your next meeting.
Mhm.
And take a vote to do the 10% increase.
You need I think you need 14 days to, she needs to post it first. And
The
then
paper, the
Right.
Gazette has changed their publication times.
Oh, okay.
So we won't make the next meeting. So you can either hold a
Special.
special meeting just for that, or it'll have to wait till the 18th. And their publication dates now, to get it in on like Tuesday, you have to get it in on Friday by like noon. So they've really stretched out. It used to be 4 o'clock that day, the next day it was in the paper. That's over.
Text titles will be in the paper on Saturday, so.
Yeah, it's just,
Yeah.
as with everything, they're getting smaller and they have less staff and this is how they're doing it, although they did not drop their prices.
So what's
If you
the
could do a
earliest we could?
Zoom, if you could do a special Zoom, because we're holding,
Yeah.
doing the readings. So that we can get the February billing.
If I submitted it tomorrow, they would hit the paper on Saturday.
Yep.
At best, if I get it in by noon tomorrow, Saturday, so 14 days, which obviously don't we do it on a Saturday, so.
Right.
I would say the following Monday.
2 Mondays.
Which I think is a 7th.
October 7th.
So you get it in on the 21st and we would be able to do it on the 6th, 7th.
October 7th.
Yeah, I'm gonna be at a conference, but I can pop out for a Zoom. Yeah. Could we do it at like,
Luncheon.
or 5 o'clock or what would work for?
As long as it's Zoom, I'm pretty flexible.
Okay, because it is a public hearing too, and we want to be respectful. I mean,
Yep.
7 in the morning or noon would be great, but it's probably not good for the public, so. Like 5 or 6 o'clock, what would people?
Well, so if we go a little further out that week, are you back and we could do an in-person public hearing? Like Tuesday?
We're just holding up the readings.
Pardon?
We're just holding
We're
up the
holding up the
readings.
readings, right?
Yeah, so I won't be back until the 9th.
Okay.
So.
So Monday or the 7th or?
Like I said, it'd have to be, if it's not the 7th, then it'd be the 10th. And then I don't want to negatively, if that's squeezing things, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, so when we do the 7th,
5 p.m.
5 o'clock, can you do that, Amy, or for Zoom?
Yes, I can make that work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So
All right.
7th at 5 p.m. I will get that in the paper tomorrow.
All right, great. All right, thank you. Thanks, Jennifer. Okay. All right, Scott is not involved in the next one. So the next agenda item is the form of government committee appointments and a discussion about the mission. So I know we do have some folks here tonight who have asked to be appointed to the committee. Before we do that, I just wanted to go back, because it's been a while since we talked to the Collins Center. The original plan was to see if we could get people interested to serve on the committee. And we have done that now with the goal of kicking this off in the fall. So we're on time. But one of the things I just wanted to kind of make sure, again, the full select boards that we're all saying the same thing in terms of the mission. Because I think there's been some confusion because at one point in time, there was a strong administrator job description presented to us. And I think there's some people who thought that we were like this committee was strictly looking at that particular iteration and deciding whether or not we wanted to go in that direction. My understanding and the request that went to the Collins Center was this is an exploratory discussion about whether or not the current form of government we have, which is basically governed by Mass General Law, right? So Hadley doesn't have a charter per se that you hear some other towns having, is the best form of government meeting our needs right now, or whether we should consider any of the possible changes that could come, and I think it ranges from doing what we're doing now, looking at the opportunity to possibly delegate more within Mass General Law to the town administrator to take some of that burden off of the select board and provide more clarity, which is something you've brought up, David. Whether we want to go to a strong town administrator, which would involve a charter change. And again, these are things the committee would be discussing, what works now, what doesn't work very well, And then talking about the range of possibilities on how to solve that relative to the form of government. So I just wanted to clarify, that's my understanding of what we're doing. We're not strictly sticking with it's the strong town administrator or not. This isn't intended to lead us to a conclusion one way or the other.
And
This is just looking at the options and seeing what we can do, whether it's within our current form or if we wanted to go in the different direction, we'd have to change our form, basically.
Right.
Right. Okay.
And it has nothing to do, and this is where people are confused with our current hiring for a new town administrator. This is a long-term plan that we're looking at, not something about, right now we have to do this because it would take town meeting and a lot of planning before it could ever happen.
Right, right. Because if we did decide to go with a charter, that's typically a, 2-year process in and of itself.
Yeah.
So this is just the beginning stage of starting that discussion. And then the other thing too is the intent is this wouldn't be our committee when it's formed of us sitting around a table talking about it ourselves. The whole goal would be to interview and get input from people who are currently working in our government to provide us with insight from their standpoint, what works and what doesn't. So there'll be a variety of stakeholders involved as well. Okay, I mean, does that still sound good for everybody? Yeah. Okay, so with that said, then we have received indications of interest from a number of people. When we last left off, it was agreed that myself and David Phil would represent the select board on the committee. And we currently have 6 individuals who have expressed interest in serving. It's John Silvestro, John Allen, Bill Dwyer, Mary Carney, Joyce Chunglo, and Sally Lanowski. So I think the only challenge I have is that would be an even number of people. It would be nice to have 5 or 7. So just checking to see, is everybody still wanting to, I'm assuming you're here, so you want to be on the committee. I did have a brief conversation with Bill today. I don't know, Bill, is it okay if I?
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Okay. So Bill and I were talking, one of the, Bill's obviously pretty busy with the planning board and he's on housing and economic development and the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And Bill was just asking for clarity about the mission. And after our conversation, Bill said, you may not be interested in participating. But then I also said, well, it'd be nice to have an alternate because anything can happen. So just asking, would you be willing to be on the appointment list as an alternate?
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to be the alternate. I have enough other things going on right now.
Okay. So then the motion tonight would be to appoint John Silvestro, John Allen, Mary Carney, Joyce Chunglo, and Sally Lanowski to the form of government committee with Bill Dwyer as an alternate member.
So moves.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Amy, seconded by David Phil. All those in favor?
I,
Aye. Since some of you are here, any questions? Where we're at right now is we're engaged with Mel. Sorry, I don't remember his last name, from the Collins Center, is our point person on this. So I'm trying to work with him to find out, a general timeline in terms of scheduling our first kickoff meeting. John?
The issue of a charter has been brought up several times tonight. And I think it might be
can he speak up here?
useful to speak. And anyone that's listening, what a charter does and how it's different from what we are today.
Sure. So under Mass General Law, if you go to the state website and you pull down Mass General Law, you will find a definition of, again, the most basic form of town government, which is what Hadley has. So we have an open town meeting, and as far as I know, nobody is suggesting that change in any way. Again, it could come up in conversation, but the open town meeting concept isn't necessarily on the table here. But Mass General Law defines the role of a town administrator, the role of the select board, in pretty broad terms. And then a municipality may adopt, or define within their bylaws, take that a step further. So that's what we have right now. So if you wanted to find out who's responsible for what and who has what authorities, you go to Mass General Law, and then you go to the town website and pull the bylaws in the relevant sections to see how we've defined it further. With a charter, the municipality has the right to basically petition the legislative body at the state level and say, we want a different form of government. So that's something that Amherst did several years ago now. They had a multi-year process with the charter committee. And they moved from a select board form of government to, they now have a town council with a town manager. So, there are a variety of ways to skin the cat. And again, that's why I want to be clear. We're not jumping ahead and presuming what would work best for Hadley. That's why we want to go through this. But in order to jump outside of what we have, that's referred to as a charter. So there's a separate charter governing document that dictates the roles and responsibilities of the executive body in a municipality.
Doesn't it it's okay if I ask a question? Doesn't it also define the duties of the other boards and commissions in town?
Typically, it should touch on.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. So, John Silvestro, you still okay? Yeah, you look like you did. Yeah. No, John's got it.
Yeah, put it in front of your face. Yes.
Is the select board, Carolina, aware of towns comparable to Hadley that have various forms of town administrators or various forms of how the government is organized or operates?
Are we aware of it?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So you are aware of other towns that may have more ideal forms of government than what Hadley currently has?
Yeah, again, I don't, certainly individually, I don't want to define what ideal is.
Mhm.
Right? And, whether the town's the same size as ours or smaller or even bigger,
Mhm.
they may be structured in such a way that it works for them.
Mhm.
So that's why I think the first order of business is to figure out what's working well, and then where might we do better in terms of, clear lines of reporting authority or accountability. I don't think we want to make change just for the sake of making change, but that's where the Collins Center comes in, because across the 350 whatever municipalities, they will be able to provide data on who still has our form of government and how many municipalities have moved to some form of a charter.
And will a representative from that organization be present at our meetings?
Yes, they'll be facilitating all of the meetings.
Thank you.
Yep. Mhm. Okay. All right, well, thank you. Thank you for everybody who expressed an interest in serving on the committee, and look forward to working with you. Pardon?
Did we vote? I think you had a motion in a second.
Oh, I thought we
I
voted.
thought we all said aye.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we did.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, thank you.
May I ask that you float on either to term or say term limit?
Pardon? Oh, the term, for the duration of the project.
That would be my preference.
Yes. Do we not? Okay.
That was not a clear.
I'll make a motion that we appoint individuals on the committee for the term to be defined as the duration of the project. So,
Second.
okay, so motion made by Molly, seconded by David. All in favor?
Yeah.
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, Jennifer. Okay, next on the agenda, we have the senior center solar project and contract. So Jane, you want to give us?
Yeah, so two things going on here. One is, if you've read the contract, I am not the customer, it would be the town. But our town council has this, and she is changing a few details. The amendment, which is also an attachment, is what the town council wrote when she first saw the contract before anything was filled into it. So basically, she's good with the amendment, and the contract is what we're all looking at. And basically, it's like any contract, and it lays forth the payment schedule and the details of the work. So there are changes to be made, but I would like to move that we accept this pending the changes from the town attorney.
So, I'll second that. I noticed in the contract, it talks about an EV charger, and I know that had been talked about at planning and some other areas as far as taking a parking spot away from the,
It doesn't have one filled in, put it there, but there's nothing.
okay, I just wanted to
That's
make sure.
just part
so-
of the form. No,
Okay.
we're
That
not
would be
having
a very
charger,
good
we're not
catch.
having- No batteries, no chargers.
Okay, sounds good.
Because we don't want to deal with that after the
No.
fact. Do people feel comfortable approving this subject to?
I'm okay with it. Anybody else?
Okay. So,
I made the motion.
I was just like, okay, so motion made by Jane, seconded by David. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Thank you. Okay, next, moving into new business, item 5.1, recycling dividends program grant report. I believe this is Kathy Nelson. Yep, there's Kathy. You want to take yourself off mute?
Hi.
You-
Yeah, so I'm here with you tonight as my other hat, recycling coordinator. Just to sort of give you an update. Do you guys know what this program is? Should I explain it or just jump right
If you
in?
could- I think for
Quickie.
the general audience, a quick
Okay.
review is good. Yeah.
So it's called the Recycling Dividends Program. And then grant, you apply for a grant. And it's a offshoot of Mass DEP, and basically the state is offering towns and cities. It's a way of the state encouraging us to do a good job with our solid waste and recycling and composting and so forth. So the way it operates is recycling coordinators of towns can it's kind of a lengthy application that I've done 3 years now, where they just ask a myriad of questions about what we're doing with this, that, and the other thing, and having to do with solid waste and recycling and composting. And so for each question, it's based on a point system. And so this year we accumulated 13 points, and we the pay rate on the points is I don't know, they bumped us up to being a social justice community, which I'm not sure that we actually fit that description, but they think we do. So this year we paid
Social justice.
Excuse
Um,
me?
what?
No, sorry, you're good.
Am I rushing it?
No, you're good.
Anyway, so we got $375 for each of our 13 points. So this year we received $4,550, which is pretty much double what we've ever gotten before. So, which came in around the first of the year. That's actually the grant award for 2023. And we started out, with money left over from the prior year. We had a shredding event in the spring, which we spent $1,000 out of this money for. And we've purchased, what we've been doing is going in on an order of 10 for Northampton, 10 for Hadley of the Earth Machine compost bins. Northampton has the account, and you have to buy them at 20 at a time, and they haven't been really selling that well in Northampton. Anyway, that's what we've been doing. So we spent $650 on compost bins, all of which we have already sold. We had a run on compost bins in June and I sold 17 compost bins. It was pretty amazing. Anyway, between what we've spent, this, two things we spent money on is the shredding event and buying the compost bins, and then residents, this is a Hadley program. Residents can buy these compost bins for $25 each, which that money goes back into the RDP account. So we've ended up with $5,061 until today. So did you guys get this paperwork that I sent?
Yes.
Yep. We have it
Okay,
all.
so you can kind of follow along here. So we have some significant money we can spend this year, and based on the points that we accumulated this year, I have they changed the questions from year to year, so I can't guarantee we're gonna get this much money next year, but I'm pretty sure that we will. So I'm recommending that as soon as Northampton is ready to order more compost bins, we go ahead and do it, because we have 4 people on a waiting list now who want them. Then, in discussing, well, the other thing I realized in looking through the approved spending list, every year Hadley has participated in a 4-town, it's the Household Hazardous Waste Collection Day, which we do with Amherst, Shutesbury, Pelham, and Hadley. And it costs the town usually $400 because I volunteer and that shaves off $100. But this year I couldn't do it. I was in a car accident and I couldn't get to it. So we recently got an invoice from Amherst for $500 for our participation in that thing. But I found out that we can pay that $500 out of this fund. So I meant to get your okay on doing that, but DPW got it all kind of came to a head today, and I went ahead and said, do it, and gave them the expense account number to send to the bookkeeper. So I hope that's okay with you. Anyway, the big purchase here that we can do, since we have this nice chunk of money to spend on some kind of, waste management, recycling, project. Scott, when I happened to be in Jennifer's office talking about the shredding event, and Carolyn came in and we all kind of brainstorming, and Scott McCarthy happened to be out in the hall, and we called him in, like, do you have something that, this money could be appropriately spent? And he said, well, actually, we could use a couple of outdoor trash receptacles. So at first he was saying to put behind public safety where the baseball fields are and the kids play soccer and stuff. But since then, he and I have gone back and forth. I've gotten a bunch of quotes. In order to use this money for outdoor receptacles, we have to meet 2 criteria. They have to be made from recycled material, and the vendor has to have a state contract with Massachusetts. And then, I wanted it to be what Scott wanted. He wanted a little lid on it, blah, blah, blah. And through the course of our discussions, he actually changed his mind and decided we'd probably be better off if we can only get 2 right now, with putting them at the bus stops right outside there, one by the Russell School and then the one right on the corner of Middle Street and Route 9. So the quote, the least expensive quote, do you have I think you have it in front of you. For the type of trash can that Scott feels, will work, and that is made from recycled plastic, for 2 of those, it's $2,716. So I definitely wanted you to say whether that's okay to spend or not.
So I think I'd want to talk to Scott a little bit more about the location.
Okay.
Only because, as somebody who uses the athletic fields, or well, my kids use the athletic fields behind the school. There's 1 trash can in the elementary school park.
Hey. Yeah.
And so there's nothing out there. I see that as a benefit to a heck of a lot more townspeople that, you know, hundreds a weekend in most cases than, you know, at a bus stop on Route 9.
Yeah.
So
Is Scott still there?
no, I think he left.
Yeah.
But
I
so,
don't,
yeah,
I think, you know, he's been very amenable to, I mean, he came up with this and I kind of, you know, was deferring to him, but I think if I call him up tomorrow and say, look, the select board would rather have us put these behind public safety, he'll be like, okay, you know, I don't, unless you particularly want to talk to him about it first.
No, I think you can do that, but my question is, do you think you have sufficient funds that you might buy 3 of these?
No,
Okay.
if you look at, I did a little. No, I don't think so, because on my report page, so we have $5,061 now, less the $650 spent on that we really need to buy more compost bins. So I kind of want to, I don't want to spend that money. People have caught on, and I mean, if you guys want me to not buy any more compost bins this year in lieu of getting 3 trash cans, then I guess we could do that. But having visited, you know, been in that area behind public safety, it seems to me like, I don't know, David, are you thinking put 1 more back there or 2?
I mean, honestly, we could probably use 2, but I think even 1 would be great. And I would think it just seems like to serve a bus stop, which PVTA
no.
is supposed to be maintaining, cleaning, you know, doing all that, which they don't always do. I think for us to bear the expense of that and have our DPW employees have to go empty those trash cans, it would be a better impact to even put it by the common where people, you know, by the bike path over there where those benches are, or 2 at the athletic fields, or maybe 1 out. I don't know what Hopkins has now because my kids aren't that old, but maybe on those
Oh,
athletic fields.
right, because there are those fields way out there.
Yeah.
Well,
and,
so,
you know,
so rather than take time during the meeting, I am 100% happy to ask David to to work with Scott and Kathy on the
Okay.
location. Are you okay with that?
Stuck my foot in my mouth. Huh?
Yeah, you did.
I move that we accept her suggestion and buy 2 of these barrels.
Sure, I'll second that.
Yeah, okay, motion made by Jane, seconded by David.
Okay,
all those-
but maybe
all
what
those
we
in-
need to look at here is if we hold off on buying any more compost bins.
Patty, we're gonna let the select board take the vote, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay,
Oh, do we want to retroactively approve these $600 for
Yes.
the,
Yeah,
or $500 for
We
the,
want to buy more composting bins.
no, for the household
Yes.
hazardous
yes.
waste?
And I want to approve her
Well,
buying
I'm
more.
just wondering, as long as you're voting, do you want to vote only for 2 or do you want to vote for 3 if we can afford it?
I would say 3 if we can afford it. Plus buying more compost bins, plus paying the town recycling fees.
Well, okay, but we can't afford it if we buy more compost.
yeah.
bins.
Why don't we just stick with the 2 for now? And I mean, you can always come back, right?
But we'd have
Sure.
to pay for it again, the freight, if we can put 3 on 1 load instead of 2.
But you know what? Why don't David and Scott talk about the placement? And in that conversation, you can also decide how many, right?
Which one are we voting on? Is the question, right? Because there's 2 options. There's one where it's 20 compost bins, 2 outdoor trash
Oh,
receptacles.
we weren't supposed to get that.
Oh,
It's that requires a whole other conversation, because if we buy compost, if we get, you know, get into a contract with Orbis ourselves, then we always have to buy 20. I don't think we can fit 20 compost bins behind the dumpsters outside of the senior center, which is where we're storing them. Also, somebody would have to be available to offload. The bottom line is, if we're going to buy that many, which would be great for the town, we probably have to store them at the DPW, and I don't know if they have space for that. I have not thought about that.
Yes, I
That-
think Amy's just looking for clarity on, Kathy, what exactly are you looking for approval tonight? To buy 2 receptacles, the compost bin program with Northampton at the lower price point, and then the funding for the fee for the hazardous waste.
Right, okay.
That is what I came here looking for, yes.
Okay, so that's the motion made
That's the
and
motion.
seconded. Okay,
Should know the best.
all right, good. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Thank you very much for all you do. Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay,
thanks,
I have one more question. You've said yes to that purchase,
Yeah.
but it's sort of contingent on where they're gonna go, right? Do you want
Well,
me to?
that's up to.
But that's gonna be decided. We're delegating that.
We don't care where they go.
Yeah, I would say we said, go ahead and buy them. We'll find a spot for them.
Okay, great. That's what I wanted to know. Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks, Kathy.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have an up late, that was a Freudian slip. An update from the bylaw committee, and I believe Jim Maximowski is here with us this evening to tell us about all the good work you've been doing.
He's up late with us too.
Yeah.
He is up there, yeah.
Okay, well, I think the bylaw committee is entering its 3rd year. And we've made some changes from the past prior town meetings to update minor things. We have 2 articles on this upcoming town meeting right now. And if we postpone the town meeting, we possibly will have 3, even 4. And I don't want to hear anything about the articles on this fall town meeting. One is we're going to amend chapter 53 constables. This is nothing against any constable that has ever been in Hadley, or there's even a constable currently. We are looking forward to what could be. And right now, we have elect 2 constables. Under state law, a constable has all the authority of any police officer. That's a fact. A police officer must go through a whole bunch of training to be qualified. A constable simply needs to be elected, and the qualifications are none, basically. And, okay, that's one issue. A constable, we've always had good constables, even currently. That's not, I guess there's nothing against any current. But let's say we hire a constable someday and they go rogue. Well, none of us, neither the board of selectmen nor the police chief, they're an elected official. The only way to remove that person is a recall
vote.
election. So until that recall takes effect, if it did, you can just imagine havoc that could be ensued. The proposal is to make the constables appointed by the board of selectmen with the recommendation consultation with the police chief. I don't know how many towns still elect constables, but this is, state law says gives you that option of appointing or electing.
Okay.
And basically the article says, we're not, right now, we're simply saying that in consultation with the police chief, the select board may appoint constables for a period not to exceed 2 years. So the select board and the police chief could decide do they want 1, 2, 3, and it basically is to oversee elections and any other duties in accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 41, 91A, and 91B. And they would be basically non-gun carrying authority. Today, if they can get a gun permit, they are what they are, okay, or could be. So that's the theory behind that. The other one,
Wait, do we pay our constables?
yes,
What do we pay them?
They make the same rate as a base level police officer.
When they're actually doing something?
Yes.
An hourly rate.
Hourly rate. Okay, thank you.
and the next one is to amend section 218 of the general bylaws by basically making it illegal, if you would, when you want to use that word, to discharge rubbish or yard waste in the street.
Well,
And importantly, our yard waste, I think most of the yard waste rubbish is already defined. However, we're also defining yard waste. Sometimes you go by people's yards. I mean, it's impossible. Well, first of all, it's impossible to mow your lawn and not get some grass clippings in the street. That's not the point here. You go by other people's, some people in town, and they mow their lawn and the street is as green as their yard. And that grass clippings in the street, depending on moisture content, can be a hazard to any two-wheeled vehicle, be it a motorcycle, a bicyclist, or whatever it might be. And it's basically to make that, becomes the non-criminal disposition, non-criminal disposition bylaw. And the same thing about pushing snow across the street. Some people push snow across the street. Well, when they get through, it's across the street and the street is clear. Other people, there's windrows of snow where they plow it. That's what, it's also a hazard for the driving car. Those are the two that are going to be on the warrant. The other two that could be on the warrant, one is at the request of the fire chief about labeling solar panels, the electrical panel on the solar meter. He's asked for some specific information to be placed on the meter in case of a fire or emergency. Some companies don't have a problem and they put it there. Other company says, well, we normally give you this information. We don't have to give you this other information. He's running into some issues. So he's going to request some specific wording and we're going to make it a bylaw that if a solar system is put in, this will be the information required on the front of the disconnect panel. I don't want to get into what's required because Mike knows a lot more than I do, and I'm not trying, but anyways, it all got to do with fire department safety to make sure that where the disconnect is and contact information, etc. Another one that we're working on, I hope it's ready if the town meeting is postponed, is a bylaw on the town common. The town common is becoming more and more wanted, for lack of a better term, to be used by different organizations, and that's wonderful. But there's also could be abuse involved. We're not so much abuse as much as damage to the town common, as we're trying to address safety and repairing of damage. For example, if they use one half of the town common, it's one thing. But if you use both halves, now you're crossing Route 9. That is obviously more than a minor safety concern. So if they're going to require both sides of town common, they will hire and pay for police officers to direct traffic for pedestrians to cross, because we've already had a couple of incidents. We don't want more.
Jim, I'm sorry, isn't that when the select board, right now, we're the granting authority for the use, the use of the town common. So if somebody wants to use it, like the Asparagus Fest or whatever the fair was that used to be on there, they come to us and then we condition that, and they are paying for the police. So how would the bylaw be different from what we're doing now?
Probably not, but it's just going to be written down. Okay, and it's more, but it'll be written down in part of the bylaw that, and the selectmen will not, the way the bylaw is being written is not hard and fast. The selectmen will have the authority to waive something that they deem appropriate. They'll have authority to waive fees. But if there's right now, I don't believe there's anything on damage to the town common. And there is a number of issues that have occurred when damage has been done and DPW has to go out there and repair it. Well, this is written, I searched almost every community in the state that has town commons. And only one local community has a bylaw on the common. I was surprised the ones in the eastern part of the state that are the famous commons have nothing on them.
Like Lexington and
Lexington, Concord, Litchfield, they don't really, at least I couldn't find any. I'm not saying they don't exist, but boy, I searched regulations and bylaws and nothing came up. Not everybody has bylaws online either. But anyway, this will address that. It'll address repairing damage to the town common. I mean, you're going to have, for example, you got a good sized festival, stuff like that. There's going to be some damage. It also says when there's not a thing, what can the town common be used for? Like right now, we've seen instances where people are dumping various, I don't want to say that without implementing, putting anybody out. They have been finding things right by the town common because somebody wasn't there to pick it up in their yard.
Right.
That's.
Digging for artifacts. in the
That's not,
city.
okay,
Yeah.
you know, driving different equipment on town common, that's not the town DPW. That's not right. As far as utilizing it for ball games and playing and walking and hiking and various things like that, those are all fine and dandy, and that's what the town common is intended to be.
So question, because the bylaw committee is a committee that exists because we created the bylaw committee, right?
Right.
So if these are going to go on the warrant, are we putting them on the warrant or are we?
They should come before us, right?
Right. So I think they need to come to us first and then we decide whether or not they go on the warrant.
Okay, that's one example. The other way is we just get a 10-person petition. But, I mean, that's being a wise guy.
100 for the fall town meeting.
Okay, fall town meeting, you need 100.
Yeah, I'm just talking about protocol, that's all.
The two articles that I just mentioned.
Yep.
I believe you might have copies of them now. And I sent them to.
They're loaded on the warrant right now, the auto review.
Okay, yeah, because you have to say, we haven't seen any of this, right? That's why we asked you to be here tonight, so.
Okay.
But I just want to make sure we follow the right protocol in terms of getting things done. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So the articles have been given, the constables and the waste and street have been given to Jennifer for, I guess if you want to vote to put them on the warrant. But if you're gonna delay the warrant, then you can obviously delay your vote. And the other two, hopefully we'll have.
So will there be comments about the bylaw, the common bylaw about residents using it for party events as they have done in the past? Because I know they take that sort of as I paid all this money to live here, I'm gonna have my parking lot.
The way we've written the town common bylaw, it's a town. Trying to explain without getting too complicated. The town common exists. This is the area between the two west streets. It also extends beyond that past the sidewalks. So we've defined the area as the town common proper, the area between the two streets. And then the town common outers, which is the area, we don't define how far it goes, it simply says, according to the definition of the town common, it's 330 feet wide. And I looked on the assessor's maps and it doesn't tell you exactly where the edges are past I know it goes past the sidewalk, but how much. But if you use the 330 feet, you draw a line down the middle of the common and go obviously 165 feet in each direction. That would need to be a little bit defined as far as understood where it is, but it's already defined. The distance from the street to a house where the town common is just beyond the center grass area, but like in the street, in the center of the house, we define what it can be used for. Like you can use it for a couple tag sales a year. If you've got a farm and you want a farm stand, you can put a farm stand up during the growing season, provided no permanent structures and no permanent signs. If you want to use it for parking of your car for a party or regular event,
Incidental.
you can do that.
Yeah.
You can basically, you can use it like your front yard. However, you can't grow anything, you can't plant any permanent trees or shrubs there. And you can't put any structures in, just like, you're not supposed to in regular, on your yard where I live. I can't plant, of course, I can't go that close to the street anyways. But the West Street, West Street's a little bit different because typically a front yard setback on most of West Street
Is beyond the sidewalk.
15 or 20 feet.
Right.
It's very close, but when you look at the street, it's like, wow, those houses are set way back, but that's because the common is so large, so expansive. And so we defined what can be used for the town common base. Like I said, if it's your front yard of a house, you could do similar things there.
Right. And so none of this has been reviewed by council yet, right? They'll do that when
None
they
of it
review.
by council, no.
I just received them yesterday. I'm not gonna send it back to council till after.
Yeah.
the
Sure.
tonight.
Yeah. Okay.
The waste and street and the rubbish, I'm sure are fine. The common, once we finish defining everything, and town council looks at it. That one, I'm guessing probably won't be ready for November, but more than likely the annual meeting in the spring.
Do we also have to address enforcement when we're with any of these bylaws?
It'll depending on what's going on, it'll be someplace between police, zoning, building inspector, depending what the issues are. And it'll be a non-criminal disposition kind of thing.
So one thing I know has happened in the past, not currently, but there have been residents who say, well, it's not mine, so you have to take care of it. You have to mow it. Is there going to be any statement about it? Is it assumed that the resident will
Yep.
be responsible for the territory up to this pavement?
There is a brief statement right now that as part of the permitted uses, mowing and removing of snow is permitted. We could be way more forceful and say that you shall remove this grass in front, you shall mow the lawn, keep your lawn, I know, I really can't define mowing, but we can say make it some kind of a presentable, I don't know what I can't think of the words on the top of my head, but something along the lines of proper mowing. Okay, and of course, they have no choice but remove the snow. If they
Except,
wanna,
well, driveways, but you gotta look out, are you expecting them to clear the town sidewalks?
well, the sidewalks fall into the different things that
Yeah.
it would be. I would be against saying you've got to clear the snow on the sidewalk in front of your house on West Street if we don't do it in the rest of the town.
Correct, thank you.
But-
Because that would be, to me, that's unfair. Why should I clear my snow when, what's his name over here doesn't have to?
Or it doesn't even have a sidewalk.
Well, they have a site.
Well, and I think the snow removal needs to be part of the town's responsibilities as it's always been.
Yes.
But as far as like Jane was talking about for the lawn maintenance and, picking up tree branches, things like that. There has been a lot of people over the years that when they get in a little tiff with the town says, that's it, I'm not mowing my lawn, you do it. Because it's town property. So if we could somehow define that it's.
Yeah, I mean, that would be, that would be something that would be more of a general bylaw, because that would have to apply to the whole town and not just West Street on the lawn mowing. To me,
Have that, right? with the
that's a great,
Building inspector.
welcome,
That's
you
right.
want to live in this tall grass right here in front of my house.
Right.
So the other thing that I have heard from Scott is that, in the past, and probably currently, if some of the trees that are in the town beltway, if you will, have come down in a storm, people pile them out by the street to have DPW pick them up. But he has noticed that there are arborvitae bushes and things that are not growing in that area also put out. So I think that might want to be clarified.
Okay, but that's,
Again.
we're only talking about the town common.
Right.
But these are all things that the bylaw committee, that you basically are saying the bylaw committee may want to look at these things.
Mhm.
And if you're, right now we have all of the existing bylaws assigned for review by somebody in a committee.
Okay.
And hopefully over the next 6 months, we'll have those addressed. Some of those are very simple, some of those are already up to date. Some of those use outdated words.
Mhm. Mhm.
The handicap access section calls it disabled people.
Mhm.
And, okay, we understand, but it probably should be updated to use appropriate wording and so on and so forth. And some of those are very just minor changes like that, and various issues. And then there's others that we should be looking at, like, okay, something on the town common. Put something for a townwide mowing, of your front right of ways, if you would, for lack of a better term, to make sure that is kept at least reasonably mowed.
Mhm.
And if you have other things, drop me an email.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, thanks for the update. Appreciate it. And then we'll be talking about it again, obviously, when it's on the warrant, we see the language. So anybody else have anything for Jim?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, special town meeting. We are going to talk about the possibility of changing the special town meeting from October 24th to a later date.
Because.
Would you like to?
So,
This is something that came up in discussion when talking with the finance management team. You have a capital committee that got started a little bit later than normal. Their first meeting is not going to be until next week, 24th. And they will not yet be meeting with any of the department heads to discuss the specifics of their capital requests. It's literally going to be their first blush at the capital requests. You have a finance committee that has had to cancel a couple of meetings and hasn't really had a chance to look at the overall financial situation. Obviously, they don't have any capital to look at. And you have two unions who we are trying to drag across the finish line here and get some solid numbers to Linda and to Joan so that we can put together not just FY 26, but 27 and 28 as well. Or I'm sorry, not just retroactively FY 25, but FY 26 and 27 as well. So the idea was floated that is there a possibility that we could delay town meeting to give all of those boards and committees, as well as myself, a chance to gather the numbers together, put them forward and be able to get everything on special town meeting. With the unions, it has to do with retroactive payments. If we can't get their numbers, get the negotiations completed, we're talking about waiting until annual town meeting, and they'll be waiting a year essentially for the money for their wages. We have also spoken with the non-financial, I guess is the easiest way to say it, the non-financial committees and boards. Jim, we talked with the planning board, the bylaw committee, things like that. As Jim mentioned, they have an opportunity to possibly get a third article on to get it done. If we do delay, we have spoken with Jessica. She has told us that the 7th, we were looking at Thursdays, the 7th is a no-go for us, so she gave us the 14th. It seems like the 14th will work for the clerk. It'll work for the schools. The school has been held and for the space needed. And in speaking with everyone in town hall, all the financial individuals, it looks like that date will work. So essentially, I wanted to bring it before the board for your discussion and to see if it would be possible.
And the other concern is if we did go to the 21st, the tax recap is, I mean, we're really.
There's a lot of people that start their Thanksgiving vacations that week early
true,
as
too.
well, so we may have a quorum problem, so.
Good point. Okay. Is everybody comfortable with the
Yeah, I move
14th
with-
work?
I move we change it to the 14th.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Jane, seconded by David. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Thank you.
thank you. And the town-wide speed limit,
Yeah, we heard about that.
Police Chief Michael Mason.
Your hat.
Well,
You said over there, please.
Yeah.
So this is something that has come before the board in the past. The board has many times before been asked by residents for speed limit signs in their community. We have to go through the DPW. There are a lot of costs involved with adding new speed limit signs and things like that. And I'm certain that most people here and most residents in our community have seen the speed, just our bordering town of Sunderland have seen those speed limit signs as you enter the community. That's essentially what we're talking about here. I can't recall exactly why it wasn't done in the past, and I don't think it really matters. But I have gone through our legal department and asked, what is the recommended way to handle things like this, where you're talking about either thickly settled areas or business districts. And there are 3 essential recommendations for it. And the one that is the most recommended by Mass DOT is the townwide speed limit. It would alleviate the issue of having to hear residents and add speed limit signs in places and add costs all over town, because we do get those requests quite often. And essentially you would have to put up signs at your town borders. The other part of it is that on unposted roads, we have many of them in our community. There are two ways to enforce speed. One of them is posted speed limits, which a lot of those roads don't have, and the other one is something called speed greater than reasonable. And essentially you are, the officer is writing a citation based upon the opinion of whether or not somebody was traveling too fast for those conditions or too fast for the roadway. Those are difficult to win in court, and thus there goes any revenue that you would have for those citations. If you approved, or if you would approve to put it on the warrant, and then it passed that town meeting, you would have a fully enforceable 25 mph posted speed limit. We would have to do the advertising for it and things like that, but those are small matters.
And that would also be on Route 9 throughout the town.
No, all of the roads that are already posted remain the speed at what they are posted. These are just for unposted roads in thickly settled, so all of our neighborhoods where there's no speed limit signs, where there's kids running around and things like that, would be 25 mph if there's not already a speed limit posted there.
25 unless otherwise posted.
Exactly.
Motion to approve that for the town meeting warrant.
Second that.
Okay, motion made by David, seconded by Jane. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
And then we'll have people out enforcing that full time.
Well, if you want to give me more money for a full-time traffic officer.
We can't have them pay for themselves with all the
Oh,
citations
we
they're
can't,
gonna write.
no, we can't, we don't even talk like that.
Yes.
all right, town administrator, acting town administrator, Michael Mason now. You've the
Yeah,
special
thanks for
town meeting
having me.
warrant.
So your town administrator search, I have spoken directly with 3 different local-ish,
So hang on, sorry.
I'm sorry. Warrant.
The warrant reviews first and then the town
Oh, I'm
administrator.
sorry, I jumped in, my bad.
That's good.
Go ahead, Jennifer, sorry, sometime. Jennifer, oh, by the way, I just want everybody to know, Jennifer and Linda have been working on the warrant. They have done a phenomenal job. I'm still learning all of that stuff, and they've stepped in and done amazing work.
Yep, thank you both for doing that.
Now, are we just reviewing it but not closing it because we have extended the,
That's what I was gonna ask you, is that
do we
there's
even-
no need to close it tonight.
Okay.
I was just preparing. to
Fine
take
with
up
me, yeah.
Not to.
yeah, I mean, do we want
Do we
to
wanna
go
close it
over
and then
it
just
tonight or
reopen?
we want to wait?
That's,
Do we want to close it and then reopen like we do, or just leave it open?
Leave it open.
Yeah,
Because we have to update it now from
Yeah, I mean,
24th.
there's gonna be some numbers that we can probably add to it, plus, we will make sure that you have the bylaws added to it, so that you can, or at least
yeah.
they're already-
be prepared to add to it, so that you can approve and put them on, because you do approve.
Yeah, that's why my question was, is it worth it for us to even go through it tonight?
Probably not.
I mean, I can give you the hits. I mean, it's also loaded in Word docs for you to review.
Yeah.
It's y'all's pleasure, whatever you would like to do.
Feel like I'd rather go through it kind of the day that we close it, maybe? If everyone else is good with that.
I'm good with waiting, maybe
Yeah.
not the day we close it, but
But-
when it's got more stuff in it than it currently does, like some more
Yeah,
numbers.
there's just no,
Yeah, why don't we?
no,
The one thing that does need to be brought up is for a dare place.
Yep.
That needs to have a select board member do the walk of the road with the DPW director. Last time, I think, David, you did it Birch Meadow. But that is something that'll need to happen for that to remain on the.
A dare place is short, right?
Yes.
It's down off Lawrence Plain.
I believe
Yep.
so.
I'll walk it with him.
You'll walk it with Scott?
Yeah.
Okay, I will connect y'all through emails
oh, a
to
dare,
do that.
not a
It's Paul Benjamin's.
dare.
Yep.
Okay.
A space dare.
Okay. Great, so the warrant remains open.
Excellent.
Okay, town administrator search.
Okay, now we'll do this. So I have spoken to three different companies, one of which, two of which, I'm sorry, were either used the last time or were part of your investigatory process of potentially using the last time. All 3 are local-ish. The MMA, as well as several of the local town administrators, turned me on to these individuals, and I've spoken directly with all of them. I was very pleased with what they state their protocols are for finding a town administrator. They do the vast majority of the work. They will be a part of the process all the way through. The issue really is, and timeframe is, pretty close to the same for all of them. You're talking anywhere from 12 weeks all the way up to, 5 or 6 months for the totality. There's most of them usually break it out as this is our search process, and then the rest of them will say this is the interview process and things like that. They give lots of different options as to whether or not you want to do a search committee and with town members involved. And they will run that process for you. Some of the companies will do the entire process for you and put the finalists in front of you, and that's it. All of them are willing to come in and speak with the board, and you can ask them any questions you want, and you are looking at anywhere in the area from 9,500-ish to 20,000, depending upon what, all of them would tailor the services for your community.
Mhm.
I don't think that any of the 3 are automatic no's, so I think you should, I should consider scheduling and putting them on agendas so that you can speak with all of them, but I am just giving you an update and also, looking just for a little bit of direction as to where you'd like to go. Do you want, you have a couple of options, just things that have run across my mind as I was thinking about this, is that you can handle it as you can look internally first, if you'd like, as far as folks who work in town. You can allow anybody who might be interested, not me. Please understand, I'm not talking about myself. You can allow anyone who might be interested to apply in the regular process. You can choose to give them preference. You can choose to allow them to compete with any of the individuals who have been headhunted, so to speak, by the companies. Completely your call. Just give me some marching orders and I'll make it happen.
So last time.
Yeah.
We didn't have people on the search committee, but rather we had people on an interview committee, and the company produced their top recommendations. Although if they gave us the top 5 recommendations, they gave us like the top 15 resumes to read. So that if there was somebody that they might have missed, that we said, oh, no, look, this is just what we're looking for, that we had that option. And I think that was a very comfortable thing to do in terms of
I think it
time.
worked well, yeah.
Yeah.
But I will say, I think it's a good idea to make an internal announcement first to give our current employees the benefit of doubt or the first crack at it. Maybe we get someone, maybe no one is interested, but we also have the chance of saving ourselves a headhunting fee if we did come across somebody that we liked and we thought was qualified. I just think it's a courtesy to give the current employees.
There's probably no reason we can't do that if we have the job description while we are interviewing people for them.
Yeah, I don't want to lose any time.
Right, so.
I'm
that's
just
what I'm
the
saying.
guy at the end of the table, definitely don't lose any time. I'd be in favor of going ahead and trying to schedule them to come in.
Yes.
With and like you said, we can run a parallel path. We can
Right.
make an internal announcement, like everybody knows.
Yeah.
But people can send a letter of interest to the select board if they,
Yeah, that works.
but in the meantime, we keep things moving.
Things moving, absolutely, I think that's correct.
So we want to give them a deadline for any internal candidates to submit a letter of interest, so we can know that we have a drop dead date to move on to the external candidates for that.
October 7th,
Yeah.
For
Wait,
7 days.
7 days.
Yeah, I was gonna say before our next meeting.
Yeah.
I would say minimum, and then that way,
That way,
that way I can simultaneously try to get one, maybe more, depending upon the length of your agenda.
Right.
To come in for the very next meeting, the companies
Sure.
themselves, they interview.
No, that'd be great. And
be good.
just asking the board if we need to schedule an extra meeting, just.
Yeah.
Everybody okay with that?
absolutely. Yeah. We've got a lot going on. We may need more meetings occasionally.
Yep.
So we're looking at 10/25 is what I should be putting in my email as far as the deadline to get to submit applications.
9/25.
That's what I meant. No,
Wait, our meeting is the 25th?
No, we were talking about 7 days for
7 days.
internal applications, and then I'll aim for the 10/2 meeting
The 10-2 meeting to, good,
for
okay.
as many as we can schedule, or as many as
Right.
Molly would like to fit onto the agenda.
And
because
if
we're
we
also
have-
gonna be going over the warrant. that
If
day.
we have an internal applicant, we might call a special meeting to talk about that applicant before we have these other people come from outside, because should it be the marvelous answer to all of our questions, then we can save ourselves all a lot of time and effort.
Mhm.
If there is an internal person.
Sounds good. Okay.
Right.
All right, thank you for doing the legwork on that.
Yeah.
And that brings us right into the town administrator's report and project updates.
Alright. So, let's see. I'm gonna work off of, you have it, I think you have it in front of you, but I'm gonna work off of Carolyn's, format that she was using, because it seemed like this was what you wanted to hear about. Anything in red are my updates. So our human resources director, project coordinator, process. The interviews have been completed. We have found a couple of applicants who are phenomenal. And we have a really good feeling about, one or both of them. It's a good problem to have, I guess. And so I have already spoken with one of the two of them. I haven't gotten in touch with the second one yet, and I am moving on to the next phase in the process, which is background checks and kind of a very basic background check and interview, phone interview with the applicant themselves to discuss some of the specifics of changing jobs and things like that. So we're in a good spot with that. Positions anticipated for posting, I have added benefits coordinator to that with Joan's pending retirement. I spoke with Dan today, actually, about the assessor situation. He has invited me to a meeting next week with his assessors to discuss finalizing that, and has assured me that he has a plan in process, and I look forward to hearing that from him. I'm certain that it's going to be worthwhile for the board. We have a new intern who has started, who's going to be handling our service delivery plan. She's already working with Jennifer on that. Your government restructuring committee, that was on tonight's agenda and was dealt with, and you have a committee for that now. Let's see, the classification, compensation, and succession. All that's left on that is the appeal policy. I have completed it. I just need to work on any edits, review it, and then I'll be ready to submit that to the board for your approval. The union, fire, and municipal are still in negotiations. Again, we are real close on that, I hope. Few things on here, there's no change, or I don't have any information on it, or any change in the information. The DPW building committee, the first part of that is Carolyn's latest update, and there has been no change on that. The Russell School reuse study, I'm not sure if Molly brought that up at the last meeting, but between the last meeting and now, Molly and I did meet with AHF as well as the 5 College Consortium. And we expect a report from AHF at some point around Christmas time. And we have put those two groups together to discuss any other potential options, which were not already being considered for the reuse of those buildings. Hockenham Cemetery fence, I have gotten that moving again. It was stalled for a while. I spoke with our attorney. She has reached out to the other attorneys and basically reminded them, hey, I sent you this, I sent you the agreement. I do now have a copy of the agreement. I couldn't find it in Carolyn's email, but Lisa sent me one directly. So we now have a copy of what was sent to them, and we are waiting to hear back from their attorney. Town Hall columns, Jennifer, correct me if I'm wrong, but the payment has been made for work on that. And I believe Gary did either fix the railing that was broken out front, or at least got it into a condition where it's usable until we have a final fix on it. The levy situation, I have the information on the engineer. And I have reached out and hoping to gather a little bit more information on that and potentially from Jennifer and from Carolyn's notes that she left for me. 234 Middle Street, the town now owns this property. We have the keys, we have closed on it, and I have been working almost immediately upon receiving notice that we closed. I've been working with Attorney Mead's office on dealing with the occupants who are in there. I have been working on that pretty much nonstop because we definitely need to get that closed and basically complete the sale of that house sooner rather than later. If anybody wants to take a ride down there, you should, because it looks nothing like it used to. The DPW has been doing a phenomenal job cleaning up of that property. It looks nothing like it used to. It's amazing. Goodwin. Jennifer helped or worked with Carolyn on the proposal. That had been almost nearly completed before I took over, and she did the presentation with the CPA on Monday evening, and they did vote to accept that proposal. So we are kind of in a holding pattern, I guess, now with that, and wait to see where that goes. And that's all I had on there, on her list of projects and stuff. And if there's anything else that didn't hit that, fire away with questions.
Within the confines of open meeting.
Within the confines.
No, thanks for the update.
Okay.
Okay. Next agenda item, select board members liaison report. I just have one. Actually, Mike and I attended the kickoff meeting for the CCC, which is the Campus and Community Coalition to curb bad behaviors, so it's a relationship that we have with the University of Massachusetts. And I was actually reminded today at the meeting that they're going on 20 years.
Yeah.
And I know I've been participating for 10. So, I mean, there's a lot of good work being done. But at any rate, the kickoff today was just to get quick updates from the Amherst Fire Department, Police Department, UMass Police Department, Hadley Police Department, to talk about, beginning of the semester activity. If you've been reading the newspaper, you already are aware of the fact that it's been very busy. Nothing extremely out of the ordinary, though, which is a good thing to report. And one of the areas of interest is, trying to get a better handle on the rental population in, both the Amherst and Hadley communities, and continuing to work with those folks to make sure that they know about party registrations and all of that. So we will be spending more time doing that, but it's always good to see that group in person. So that has kicked off.
So aside on that, there was talk, and I think the bylaw committee was working on setting up a rental bylaw. Is that still in progress, or is that gone by the wayside?
So, tonight was the first time we've had the bylaw committee in front of us. I don't want to say ever, but is it ever? Yeah. Ever. So, I think it was important that Jim was able to present us with the imminent issues. But I would very much like to have them back again to have kind of an inventory of what it is they are working on. And you're right, that's what I remember. I remember, there was a lot of discussion about whether people wanted to have any sort of a rental registry and things like that. And I believe it was kicked over to the bylaw committee to work on. So I don't know if they're still working on it.
Can we make that session such that if there are other things unknown at the moment that we can discuss, that the select board would like them to consider? We have a conversation about potential things they might look for bylaws.
Sure. Yeah, I think Jim said that tonight, that if
I
there's
I want to make sure the agenda can make it, so it can be a discussion of what the select board would like to have them working on.
Okay, when we have them in front of us. Sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other liaison reports? Nope, nothing. Okay, how about announcements? I just have, one, for condolences. Since our last meeting, there have been, two individuals who have passed, Eleanor Shattuck, who I believe was a resident of the, nursing home, up on North Maple Street. So condolences to Eleanor's family, and friends on her passing. And also Pat Jasmine. Pat wasn't a Hadley resident, but she was unbelievably active, in the Hadley community. And, you know, Kathy West is her daughter, and, you know, I know that she'll be greatly missed. She was quite a force to be reckoned with. So again, just expressing condolences on behalf of the select board to Kathy and your family during this time.
All right.
Anything else?
I would like to make a motion.
Please do.
I'd like to make a motion to enter into executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A7, to review for approval and or release the following executive session minutes in accordance with Chapter 30A 22FG. Said minutes are January 5th, 2022, January 10th, 2022, January 19th, 2022, February 16th, 2022, March 2nd, 2022, and pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting law may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body for the Hadley Municipal Employees Union, UPSEU, Local 424, Unit MADIV 129, Firefighter Union, IAFF Local 5486, and the compensation study, and we will not be reconvening an open session this evening.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Amy, seconded by Jane. As chair of the Hadley Select Board, I state that the board has moved and seconded to enter into executive session. Discussing the matters in open session will have a detrimental impact on the bargaining position of the town of Hadley. Jennifer, roll call vote?
Roll call vote, Phil,
Yes.
Keegan.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
And Parsons.
Yes.